Hello everyone, it is me again, Penguin301, and today, well, the grind never stops, and I decided that I'm going to be holding off on a specific script that I've been writing because that would be more prominent to talk about this coming Saturday. Don't worry, I am aware of this quote-unquote Gamergate V2 versus Sweet Baby Inc. as of right now. So yeah, don't worry. I will talk about that because, again, I'm a gaming YouTuber and I'm a commentary channel. I really should be talking about that. But I'm going to hold off until I have to make a much better point on specifically Saturday, which is when I'm going to release that specific script. It's going to be just a script that I write. There's going to be very few visuals and things, but just know it's very, very important, and there's a reason why I want to release it on the 9th. But more importantly, talking today, we are going to be actually talking about pro versus anti-consumer. Now, I've been talking more about these more broader topics recently because, well, there's a lot to talk about in terms of those spaces. But specifically, the clip that we're going to be taking a look at today is from good old Reforge Gaming. This clip is from, I think, a while ago. I'm not too certain when this stream was, but it's a whole rant about pro versus anti-consumer. Now, as someone who actually has gone to business school and has gone through the marketing sorts of stuff, I can tell you that there is such a thing as pro versus anti-consumer. Now, in the business courses that I took, the main draw is you have to get over the person's cognitive dissonance, and the smaller that you can make that person's cognitive dissonance, the better it is for them to make that purchase. So yeah, there's a reason why there is such a thing as pro versus anti-consumer. It's more of a philosophy that is generally speaking, but when you get down to the specifics, there is a lot of merit to that sort of content. And it's like, there's a reason for it in there, blah, 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 blah. The main thing here is that apparently Reforge Gaming thinks that there is no such thing as pro versus anti-consumer. And as I'm fairly certain most people would be able to tell you, that's kind of bullshit. But you didn't come to see me rant, you came to see me just tear apart his entire arguments. So with that being said, let's get the shilling out of the way. 1K by the end of the year. Would really, really like it if you hit that subscribe button so I can get to that goal. It'd be really, really awesome making that push, and I know that we can do it. Thank you all so much for your support. Number 2, my recent single, Ode to My Friday Nights, is out. It's out on the Bandcamp. It's also out on the official fucking YouTube if you want to go and listen to it. And finally, and most importantly, I do stream on the weekends mostly. Just check my schedule, so just to be safe. And all in all, there's blah, 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 blah. So yeah, with that being said, let's get started.
I had to get him. He's my boy. But I had to get him on Twitter. I was like, what happened to you, Doc? 3 years ago, he's like, exclusives are better for the players. Like, what happened to you? I had to do it to him. Like, what are you out here saying? I'm tired of that, dude. Exclusives are anti-consumer. Anti-consumer is a misnomer. It's not a term that makes any sense. Why? Because it assumes there are things that are pro-consumer. Nothing's pro-consumer. Every decision these companies make is pro-profit. And if they've convinced you that this is pro-consumer, then you're just a sucker. Because all you're doing is buying into this facade of altruism, this facade of an ideology, so that they can get your money.
Well, yeah, no shit. That's kind of how business works. I can tell you from experience that, again, to go back to what I said earlier, the whole reason for you trying to buy a thing, the whole reason for marketing is so you get over the idea of this. I've always said this to any budding person who is trying to start a business or trying to do marketing stuff. You don't have to sell your product when you make a commercial. If you look at the actual commercials and you actually think about logically what they're selling you, they're not selling you the product. They never sell you the product. That's the thing. They never sell you the product. They sell you the idea of how the product is perceived. They want you to make that connection to get over the cognitive dissonance that you would feel in giving your money to them when that money could go to someplace else. Like an actual need rather than a want. Like, I don't need the fancy computer and the microphone and all the other stuff that I have sitting in front of me. But I assessed that all of these things that I have purchased will last me a while, so I decided to buy them. It is very different, and very differently in the needs of the person is the way that the kind of market works. And here's the thing. How is it that a company like Microsoft is trying to get people to play video games more, is trying to get more people into gaming by making it the barrier to entry smaller than it has been before? Well, maybe not has been before, but it's very small in terms of commitment and in terms of talking about it. It's because of that quote-unquote pro-consumer move. Now, yes, absolutely, these businesses are pro-profit. 100% will not deny. However, when the profits, like the pro-profit move that they try to do, aligns very closely with the wants and desires of the consumer market, that, by definition, is pro-consumer. Whether or not they make a profit or not, that is pro-consumer.
There's no such thing as pro-consumer. There never has been. We use these terms because we're like, well, this thing... We've said that about Helldivers. We're like, this monetization is pro-player. And what we really mean is it's leaning toward the player in a way that is, it's something you can interact with and not feel like you're being taken advantage of. But don't be fooled. The only reason they're doing that is because the developers decided this is the best way for us to make profit. It's driven by profit. It's not driven by you. They're not like, well, we really care about the player. No, you care about profitability.
I mean, I could literally spin that around and say that you care about profitability because you rely a lot on your audience for donations and tips and subscribers and stuff, and that if you lost their admiration, you would not be sitting in that chair yelling into a camera microphone and stuff, telling people that you are a piece of shit. Like, it goes both ways. You need your audience as much as your audience needs you. If you don't need your audience, that's fine. Like, there's a lot of places and jobs that don't need an audience. However, when you're an entertainer, when you are a person like this, you need your fucking audience because they give you that fucking chair that you're sitting in. They pay you for entertainment and stuff. They give you money for your shit coffee. I don't like coffee, so. But, like, that's my whole point here. The thing is that, yes, absolutely, what you just described is pro-consumer. Whenever they make a decision that aligns very closely with what the person is, and you're not being taken advantage of in the market, that's pro-consumer. That is giving up the potential, like, exploitative possibility to make more money with very little effort in order to make the consumer happy. That's a pro-consumer move. And Helldivers is a great example of this. Absolutely. They have a very interesting and weird monetization scheme, but they get the pass because they're a live service game and the one purchase doesn't necessarily sustain the servers and stuff long term. However, there are ways that they do it to make it seem fair and balanced, and so that way people let it pass. Similar with Destiny. Destiny is free to play, or became free to play at some point, therefore making the barrier to entry extremely low. So you can spend money on their currency and stuff like that and get the items and things for that. It's almost like, right? It is almost like when the wants and desires of the person that is making the product aligns super closely with the wants and desires of the person receiving the product. That is pro-consumer.
Charging for goods and services is anti-consumer. Yeah, the notion that exclusives is anti-consumer, it's like, how many developers have come out and said that building for one ecosystem is better for us. You get the product to market faster, it's better optimized, and it's easier on us as the developer. And you're like, it's anti-consumer. Shut up. Just shut up. Like, the ideologies are tiring. They're exhausting because they basically...
I mean, you are tiring and exhausting, yet I still respond and talk to you. But to go back to what he said about exclusives being anti-consumer, they are by their very nature. Why? Because they are offering exclusive benefits to the person who proceed to buy a different product in order for that company to make more money off of that same person. Imagine this. Imagine a world in which a bunch of the other platforms just decided to not have exclusive anymore. They would have to compete for your dollar on a more competitive level, being more pro-consumer, giving the consumer what they want, not locking off content to make sure that that consumer want is coming to them for the only thing that they would want. That's literally monopolistic type practices. How do I know this? There is a lot of businesses out there where they literally made sure that the competition was so suppressed that you only had to come to them for that profitability. Now, again, to bring up Steam specifically, I know that Steam is supposedly having a monopoly over the gaming market, and that's true on PC to some extent, but at the same time, they just don't stop. Like, they don't stop making all of these pro-consumer type moves. I think I'll bring this up a little bit later, but the main benefits that Steam offers, no one else really seems to offer. Because they try to, and absolutely, they do damn well try. But Steam is just so able and willing to bend the knee to the consumer more that they will offer them more benefits even if it costs them a bit more money. I think the best example is probably the Steam Deck where he was on record saying the price hurt. That is, if that's not pro-consumer by any stretch of the imagination, to get the price that down that low to be about on par with how good, like, the price of an actual console in order to get people into their ecosystem, if that's not pro-consumer, I don't know what the fuck is, dude.
Like, they basically posture like it's an us versus them. It's us, the consumer, against these greedy corporate overlords. And it's like, no, we're all in this together. It's a symbiotic relationship. You can't be pro-gamer and constantly wail on the developers for doing what's necessary to make money because that's what they're supposed to do. Now, yes, there are scummy practices. We should call out scummy practices when they're trying to do things like Genshin does with the pity and the almost won and the sunk cost, and so you keep spending money, right? Sure, we can call out scummy practices, but to act like exclusives are somehow anti-consumer when you get a product faster and at better quality and the developers like it, and then, yes, you can port it to other platforms later. I have no problem with timed exclusivity if that's the goal. I have no problem with that. But you can't sit here and act like building a game for the Nintendo Switch or building a game for the PS5, they've invested the money, the R&D, the tech, they worked hand in hand with the developers to ensure that the product, can come to market in a good way, optimized and on time. You can't sit here and say that's anti-consumer when consumers benefit from it. It's not anti-consumer. What it is it's you don't like it.
It is, and I will completely criticize that entire practice itself. Yes, that is very anti-consumer because they are making the competition, right, have to compete on a same level, and they eliminate the possibility that you will buy it on a competing platform. That is literally anti-consumer, and I wanted to let him get that whole rant out because some of those practices are actually pro-consumer, but he just doesn't realize it. Like, the whole pity thing is kind of gray area of pro-consumerism. Again, the whole pity thing is like, oh, you get to spend more money for it. And I think that that's kind of a thing. The sunk cost fallacy is completely 100% an actual thing that exists. And yes, maybe the pity system for Genshin Impact itself is kind of anti-consumer. I would make an argument that it actually has elements of pro-consumerism. It's a weird philosophical debate, and I'm not going to get into it here, all right? But look, one of, if not the biggest things here is that whole rant, to me, illustrates one thing about Reforge, and that is he is only anti the pro-consumer, anti-consumer when he doesn't get it, or it quote-unquote hurts the company that he shills for. Like, it just seems to me that he doesn't understand anything having to do with businesses. Yes, he understands it as a symbiotic relationship, but that symbiotic relationship can turn into a parasitical one if not kept in check. Alright? Keeping checks and balances is important when keeping a power system. Again, you can kind of quote Machiavelli or whatever the fuck you want to talk about here. And that kind of applies. Not important. What is important is this. Pro-consumer moves, like porting exclusives to consoles, so that way they can actually be preserved, and, porting exclusives to consoles or to PCs, to be more specific, is pro-consumer because it opens up your product to a new market with money that wants to give you that money because they want the product, but they don't want the shit attached to the product. They just want the product. To give another weird example, one of the big reasons why PC gaming is still very, very big and very, very growing is because of the fact that PCs themselves are very multi-use, and there's like no one that owns them. There's people that owns the individual parts to them. However, you own the PC as a product, meaning that you can repair it, you can swap out parts and bits and things to that. And I've known people who have been swapping and switching out parts and pieces to that way they can build an entirely separate computer from the old parts of the computer that they currently own. It's kind of like the computer of Sisyphus. It's not Sisyphus. You know the one, it's with the boat allegory thing, where if you take the boards out and replace the boards, like which one's the original boat, you know what I mean. Anyway. But yes, that's the reason why things like this are pro-consumer, because it correlates to the consumer's wants and desires and the business's wants and desires. When those two things fucking merge, it is pro-consumer by definition. That's how this shit works.
Fit from it. It's not anti-consumer. What it is it's you don't like it. That's what it is. There are plenty of consumers that bought a PS5 or bought a Nintendo Switch and they get a bunch of great games. Those consumers are happy. Why is your consumer ideology more important than theirs? Why do you just get to speak for the consumer blank check? Like, yeah, that's anti-consumer. What are you talking about? Did they bring a
It's anti-consumer in the sense that it actually excludes out the majority of the people there. You are specifically talking about playing to the audience that you are going for. If you want to make your product as successful as possible, which I know that these companies do, the anti-consumer practices of having to go to you for one very distinct product that is very desirable is not good. I know that that's like considered a monopolistic type practices, and in some cases it can be, but in all cases, anti-consumerism it's very weird, and there's a lot of gray area to it. Here's the thing. If overall, right, I have to come to you for a specific service or specific need or want, right, that is anti-consumer, because then you can jack up those prices, especially if it's not benefiting me or the general consumer base in any way, shape, or form. And exclusives only benefit the producers of that content and maybe their actual consumer base. And even still, it might not do that, because let's say that they release an exclusive game and the person can't fucking talk about it because none of their friends have that same game because it's exclusive to their platform and they're the only one of their friend group that knows their platform. That's pretty anti-consumer, because that means that the person can't benefit from the having of that game. Again, that's a very weak example, absolutely, but at the same time, exclusives are pretty anti-consumer because they exclude out a lot of the market. So, We'll finish up this clip in another minute, so don't worry about it. I know this video is a little long.
Product to market with a value proposition? Yes. Did people buy it and get value transmission? Yes. Is the consumer happy with their purchase? Yes. Then what in the world are you talking about? Oh, I get it. It's anti-consumers like you. Ideologues who think games should just be everywhere. Developers should just build their game for every platform and spread their budget and their optimization and their efficacy thin. They should do that because that's pro-consumer. Yes, it's so great to get multi-plat titles that were clearly not ready for launch but had to come to market anyway because eventually you got to crap or get off the pot, and we get games that aren't even ready for launch like Jedi Survivor. That's great. Yes, let's all stand and just raise a flag for that nonsense. Because everybody talks out of both sides of their mouth, like,
but what about all the other developers that say that developing for one platform is actually very restrictive and can be very, very bad for the actual overall health of the game? And not only that, they don't actually receive a lot of the actual benefits that the more profitable-ish studios tend to benefit from. At the same time, they are honestly crippled by the actual amount of crap and shit and, like, stuff that they have to do and cut corners in that same regard. I'm often reminded of some advice from Pirate Software, who he's a YouTuber and shorts and Twitch content creator that I tend to follow a bit, and he gave some interesting advice, and that is that your ideal art and your ideal project will never, ever, ever come to fruition. That's a very, like, condensed down summary of like a larger thing that he said at some point. But he is correct. In any creative field, in any form of art, in any form of literally fucking anything that you create from your brain to the physical world will never be the same as when it was inside of your head. Why? Because you have to take into account your skill, your fellow's skill, your coworker's skill, or whatever it is. You have to take into account all of those pros, cons, and benefits that you take from in this context. So, yes, in some ways, the holding out of exclusives doesn't benefit the consumer in any meaningful way. Because not only does it not mean that that piece of art cannot be shared with the widest audience possible, but that you are not but it doesn't benefit the business either, because not everyone's going to want that specific game or that specific piece of art. Why? Because it's tailor-made for a specific market, and it can't grow or become bigger in terms of profitability if it's kept to one specific platform. That's what a lot of people have been arguing this whole time. Imagine this. You have a piece of art, right? This piece of art is made for an audience of one person. You were commissioned to it to make it for that one person. You need to make it the best that you possibly can and give that person's most money's worth. That is very pro-consumer. But let's say you have a smaller audience, but you still have a pretty big one, but you are looking to sell it at the highest margin. You would want the art to be as appealing to the widest possible amount of people. If you only exclude out the majority of people without giving them even a chance to appreciate the art, that's anti-consumer. Like, that's full stop anti-consumer. It's anti-everything. It's anti-people who aren't following you. One of the other biggest reasons is that you have to find that balance, because sometimes even trying to appeal to everyone doesn't work. It's... Okay, I gotta stop, because this is gonna take, like, forever to edit, and I have to, like, do things. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Anyway. But yeah, in any case, I think that'll about do it. I got about halfway through this clip, and to be honest, that last line is just total misunderstanding of anything. Look, if you want a pro versus anti-consumer type situation or debate, go somewhere else who knows a lot more about this whole nonsense and stuff. But to me, the meaning of pro versus anti-consumer is that pro-consumer is when your wants, needs, and desires are in line with the wants, needs, and desires of the actual company or the people in charge, right? And that they are taken into account when creating the product for you or for the market. It should be able to be as wide-reaching and having the best ability to grow as possible. Exclusives don't have the ability to grow because they're only stuck to their one audience. That's just full stop. All right, you're not going to get a lot of people buying the console because they're not going to buy a console for one game, and if they don't have any friends over there, they're not going to go and do that because that's not how this works, right? Anyway, I think I've talked your ear off enough about this Poker Zen that user thing. But in conclusion, Reforge is dumb, and he had this very dumb opinion, and I just wanted to talk about it today. I know this video is longer than my normal average one, and I'll probably try to see if I can cut down a little bit. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. My name is GamePenguin21. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and a peace off.